Hello, I'm Maggie Jess, Director of Nursing at Ameristaff Nursing Services and QCN Home Care, and your long-term host at Boomer Health at Home. As you can see, we have a new format and it's a podcast. So we've also tried to change our name to Quality Care Network. We're going to have all of the same content, but we've just brought in kind of what we're speaking about today and for all of our future episodes. So what we're going to talk about today is something that we've kind of talked about before. We have our one of our favorite guests, Mr. Charles Wickens. He is a Medicare expert on benefits and anything that you would need to know. Hi, Mr. Wickens. How are you today?
Hey, Maggie. Good to see you again.
You
Looking
too.
lovely as ever.
Thank you. So I've noticed on your jacket here, you have a picture of, is that George W. Bush or is that you?
No, that's me with a gavel in my hand.
All right, cool.
No, I'm not a judge. I'm an auctioneer. I do charity auctions, and prior to COVID, I was doing like 40 a year.
Wow.
In 2020, I did 2.
Holy
So
smokes.
it went off the side of a cliff, but luckily enough, my Medicare business was growing and developing, and it gave me the opportunity to become an expert at what I enjoy doing, helping people understand Medicare.
Wonderful. I also enjoy helping people, so great. That's wonderful. So we talked a little bit about the alphabet soup the last time you were here, who's eligible, benefits, things like that. So today we're going to kind of talk at like the 2.0 level, but I want to do a little refresher for those that didn't see our first episode.
Okay.
So when an adult turns 65, they have to enroll in Medicare A and B, correct?
Incorrect.
Okay.
If they are employed, working, and have credible health coverage, they do not have to enroll in either A or B. If they work for a company with over 20 employees, the company cannot kick them off their health care. They can voluntarily go on to Medicare because sometimes Medicare is better than the plan they have. But it is an option. And if you're a high earner, your Part B premium could be quite large.
Okay. Is there a certain time frame you have to enroll by, or can you enroll anytime?
No, well, let's assume that you are not working anymore. You're retired and you turn 65. You can apply 3 months before your 65th birthday month and up to 3 months after your 65th birthday month. If you do not apply in that time frame, there will be a penalty when eventually you choose to go on to Medicare.
Okay. What kind of a penalty? What do you?
10% a year. Forever. So if, let's say you are retired and you're 65 and you say, I'm not going on Medicare, and I've had this happen. And then at 70 you say, oh, I better get onto Medicare, I need some help. You're going to be paying 50% a year more for the premium. So this year the premium is $164.50, so you'd be paying 50% more than that. But there'd also be a penalty on Part A. Yeah, if you're not working. And you don't have credible coverage with either you or your spouse.
Okay, but if you kept working until you were, say, let's say 70, and you had coverage, you would not get penalized.
No. But then you have 63 days after you retire to enroll.
Okay. 63 days. Remember that, folks.
Yes.
63 days.
Not 60 days, not 2 months.
Wow. I wonder who came up with that number.
You know, they come up with some weird numbers. How do they come up with $164.90? What's wrong with $165 for Part B premium?
Yeah.
They obviously got a share in adding machines.
Exactly. So what does the original Medicare A and B cover?
If you just choose to have A and B, A covers 80% of your hospital stays.
Okay.
And you'd be responsible for 20%. In essence, okay? And Part B pays for your doctor's visits, your specialist visits, and stuff like that. If you are in hospital, everything is covered under Part A. But if you want to go for a specialist, a doctor's visit, that's Part B. And Part B covers 80% of that cost.
Okay.
Now, 80% might let you think that the 20% you're responsible for is a lot of money, and it can be a lot of money. But do not get confused with the advertised rate of a procedure, which might be $2,500, but the Medicare approved rate is $850. And you'd only be responsible for the Medicare approved rate, 20% off.
Okay. All right. Not the rate that the hospital gives you or the doctor
Right.
gives you, or okay. And then Part C and Part D, what do those two cover?
Well, let's talk about Part D. Part D
Okay.
is your drug plans.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say that you got A and B, and then you got to have Part D, which covers your prescription drugs.
Okay.
And if you don't go on to Part D, there's a penalty for that as well, which is 1% per month forever. So let's say you wait, and I had a woman, she had Part A and B, and she didn't have any D. And she was 78 years old. So had she gone onto a plan with a Part D in it, she would have had quite a large penalty.
Right.
But that's your drug plan. So that means that you can go and get your prescription drugs underwritten to a certain extent. There'll be some co-pays, normally not on tiers 1 and 2. Part C is also known as the Advantage Plan. And the Advantage Plan was introduced, as I mentioned last time, in '64, I believe. Part C, Advantage, covers A and B. It takes all the responsibility off of the government for running Parts A and Parts B.
Okay.
And it also provides you with benefits. Now, in 2017, there were 2 plans in Oakland County that didn't have any premiums for a Medicare Advantage Part C. How many do you think there are today?
10?
43. There are 43 plans in Oakland County that charge you no premium for a Part C Advantage plan. And nearly all of them, if not all of them, include Part D, so now you don't have to pay for Part D, and they all include extra benefits. I'm going to say all of them include some dental, some of them just cleaning, some of them a bit more. There are plans out there that provide transportation. I have discovered a couple of plans that have something called Papa Pals, and it's something I've become familiar with because I actually do work as a pal for Papa occasionally. And it's wonderful. You can pick them up and take them to the doctors, take them to the dentist, take them shopping, or you can go and help them with household tasks, or you can go and help them set up the computer or set up the TV. It's a wonderful service that is provided free of charge to the client.
Wow.
And is paid for by the insurance company. I've had a couple of trips. I had a young man in Detroit. He had to go to the doctor in St. Clair Shores, something like that. And he said if I hadn't gone to pick him up, he would have had to take 5 buses. And for a 3 o'clock appointment, he'd have probably had to leave at 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's a great service that not everybody knows about, and not everybody plan has it.
So it's with the C plan that
with the C plan.
Essentially replaces A, B, and some of them D.
They pretty much all replace D.
Okay.
But I mean, when I say they replace A and B, they do replace A and B. You've still got to keep paying for B.
Right.
But they are then subsidized or paid for by Medicare, CMS, Center for Medicare Medicaid Services, to provide services at a guaranteed rate. And they do that, as I mentioned last time, because the government's not very good at running these things. And the companies that take on this responsibility, they're not pure insurance companies. They are healthcare companies.
Okay.
And they know how to be proactive.
Okay.
Or they claim to know how to be proactive.
So we talk a lot and you hear a lot about, well, I have a Medicare Advantage plan. Well, I have a supplemental plan. What's the difference between a supplemental and an Advantage plan?
A supplement is purely a financial arrangement between you and, say, Mutual of Omaha or State Farm or anybody. It doesn't have to be anything to do with medical. And what they say is that you are not responsible for the 20% anymore. The government is still responsible for the 80% and we'll be responsible for the 20%. So with a SUP, you'll be paying, I'm going to say, between the SUP and then you've still got to then go and get a Part D, you're probably paying $150 a month.
Okay.
But once you've reached your deductible, which this year is under $230, there's no charge. Whereas when you go with an Advantage plan, there'll be some copays.
Okay.
Now, the copay, the biggest and most scariest copay with an Advantage plan is a hospital stay, because it's an average of $300 a day through days 1 through 6. Now, you can buy a plan which underwrites that if you want. So, but you still got other copays to go and see a specialist and stuff like that. So some people, they like a SUP because they they come, say, from a corporate job and they're used to paying a premium and then having no cost whatsoever. Although that's not true, because most under 65 plans have quite high deductibles.
Right. Okay.
Whereas Medicare doesn't have any deductibles.
Okay.
Or $233 or under $230 this year. So people, they come out corporate world, they say, I'm going to go with a supplement. And then they turn 75 and their supplements are now getting expensive, say $400 a month. And they say, I don't know that I can afford $400 a month anymore. And this is it's a dichotomy, because I don't know whether dichotomy is the right word, but it sounds medical. But I'm not trying to be medical. I'm trying to be English. But it's when they get to the stage where they can't really afford it anymore, it's when the stage when they really should stay on it. And it's a terrible predicament for them, because I can't afford that $400 a month anymore. But on the other hand, I'm getting older and I really need it now more than I did when I was 65. So I've been asked, what should I do? Should I go on a sup or should I go on an Advantage? And I don't like to advise people. It's really your condition, your health, you know your standards. And but you can go on an Advantage plan for 1 year when you turn 65, and if you don't like it, you still have guaranteed issue to go back on a supplement in the first year.
Okay.
At the lowest rate, guaranteed. It doesn't matter how sick you are.
Okay. And then could you do the same with A and B and say, I didn't like this Advantage, I don't want to do the C. Can I go just back to Medicare A and B?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can just go on to A and B.
Okay.
But if you go on to A and B, then you've still got to have D.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, you can just, some people, they go quite happily just with A and B.
Okay.
And it works fine.
All right. Well, that's good to know. All right. So.
But on the other hand, you won't get any of the benefits of the Advantage plan. So I don't really see why you won't get dental.
Right.
You won't get the free rides. You won't get over-the-counter allowance, but you can do it, yeah.
Okay.
And
all right.
A lot of people do.
If I use, or if someone uses an independent broker, will you pay more? Is that like a fee that's built in?
No. Every independent broker, we never charge and we never obligate people. If you like a plan and sign up with a plan that I recommend, I get compensated from the insurance company.
Okay.
And it'll be exactly the same price. If people think, I'll call the insurance company directly, they'll give me a discount. They won't, because they don't really want to deal with you. I'm not saying they don't want to deal with you, but they'd much rather somebody who knows what they're doing. And then the other thing is, I don't know whether you're going to ask this question or not, but probably, if you try to do it yourself, you can. You can go onto Medicare.gov,
yeah, and
you'll see every single plan. There's probably, I don't know, there are 43 $0 plans. There might be 85 plans, in Oakland County, just in Oakland County. You really going to look at all of those and notice the little difference? Are you really going to look in there and put your drugs in there and see that they're in the formulary, or that your doctor and your healthcare system is not? You can do it for sure, but
it sounds like it takes a lot of time.
Well, I would never steer somebody wrong. I get the right plan now. I get compensated exactly the same from every carrier. So I'm not biased in any way. It's only human nature to prefer one carrier, or maybe your manager at one place than another. Comfort, or response and stuff like that. But there are more important things that we have to do. And everybody is compensated exactly the same from every carrier. So there's no financial benefit for me to push you towards ABC instead of CDW.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Earlier in the podcast, we mentioned alphabet soup because we talked about that last time. And since then, I've been doing some research on my own.
Good for you.
And something came up called a donut hole. What's a donut hole?
Donut hole is to do with Part D. By the way, alphabet soup is because it's got A, B, C, and D. And then if you go with the supplements, you've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, whatever. Right. But the donut hole is to do with your prescription drugs. When you start out at the beginning of the year, you've got copays. Tier 1, Tier 2, generally no copays. Tier 3, the average copay is $47. Tiers 4 and 5, which are exotics, can be anything up to $500. Expensive. If you see it advertised on TV, ladies and gentlemen, it's probably expensive. Now, you pay these copays, And then when you reach a figure of 42.20, you go into the thing called the donut hole. And your copays go from being reasonable, i.e. nothing, to $47, say you're on tiers 1, 2, and 3, to being 25%. Now, how do you get to that figure of 42.20? It's what you pay plus what Medicare pays and the subsidies from the drug manufacturers. So you might only pay, say, $1,000 in copays, and you might still go into the donut hole in March, right? And then from that 42.20 up to, I think, about $7,600, you're in that donut hole, and you'll be paying up to 25% copay of the drugs. And for some drugs, that's not a big deal, but for other drugs, it's a lot. But once you reach the end of the donut hole, which I think is 7,600, it's there about 7,660 or something like that. I should know, but I'm sorry. You then get out of the donut hole.
Okay.
And you go back to paying a modest copay of probably $5 a drug.
Okay.
So there are people who have got conditions that they enter the donut hole in, say, February and exit it in April.
Okay.
Now, once you go in and out, that doesn't mean to say that you spend $7,600. You probably spend something like $2,500. Okay. Because again, when you're in the donut hole, true, real out-of-pocket applies. So it's your 25% plus the subsidy. When that reaches a total of 76, you're out of the donut hole and you're home and free.
You're done with the donut hole once you do it one time, or is it every year?
Every year.
Every year you could end up in this donut hole.
Yeah, but fear not, the donut hole goes away in 2025. That's the Inflation Reduction Act.
Do I have your word on that?
Nope. I'm not a politician, but I don't lie either. But your maximum out of pocket is going to be $2,000 supposedly in 2025.
Supposedly.
In 2025.
Okay.
And there's no reason to believe that that's not the case.
Okay.
And on the same basis, I've never understood why Medicare has not been allowed to negotiate prices with drug companies. They're the biggest buyer of this product. Why?
Right.
But that's a different matter.
Yeah. We're not going to get into that today.
No.
So around this time of year, there's a lot of commercials, TV ads. I get a lot of mailings about Medicare and enrollment. Why is that? Is there a certain time?
No, I don't really know why. AEP, which is the annual enrollment period, starts October the 15th and ends December the 7th.
Oh.
Right? Then you get a lot of ads because this is when you can switch plans, you can do anything you like. Interestingly enough, and I didn't know this until January, because of a case of monkeypox here in Michigan, they extended AEP through the end of January.
So that's why.
Yes, that's why. But no, that's not why. Now you've got a thing called OEP, and during OEP, you can switch one time. So I've got an Advantage plan I don't like. Funny enough, I've got a guy, a client of mine, he called me yesterday. He said he didn't know it, but his doctor suddenly doesn't take the plan he's on. But luckily enough, I can switch him to another plan, which his doctor does take.
Oh.
And it's not a problem. You can also get special exceptions. Let's say that your doctor is, but generally doctors are only dropped at the beginning of the year. They don't generally switch plans in the middle of the year.
Okay.
But some, you can get special exceptions if things leave. So you get a few ads right now because people do have an option to switch. And also, of course, they still advertise, but not as extensively for people turning 65 or retiring into Medicare.
Okay. Great. A lot of patients call our office. A lot of family members call our office and say, oh, I'm looking for home care for my mom. She needs X, Y, and Z. She'll need a bed and a wheelchair and someone to come in and help her every single day, and an IV in the home and physical therapy. What is Medicare? Well, she has Medicare. So do you cover all of that? Whether we accept it or not, what does Medicare cover in the home care realm? Does it cover an aide to come into the home?
Yeah, Medicare will cover a certain amount of hours. And then Advantage plans will probably do a little bit better than that. And will also provide you with heavy equipment. What do you call it?
Durable medical
equipment. That's what you call it. That's right.
Okay.
And so, but there are different plans. Now, Medicare itself is not very generous with their times.
Right.
And then a lot of people are on Medicare and Medicaid, and they're even less generous. And you really don't want to go, although if you're a Medicare and Medicaid, you qualify and you won't have to pay any co-pays at all. For anything. Yeah, the provider network is slimmer than just a Medicaid. In other words, there's more doctors and providers who will accept Medicare payment than Medicaid payment. Because they pay at a lower rate.
Right.
So in your particular case, we had this conversation out in the green room, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, wasn't green. But I am got to really look into, because you're fairly new into the home health care, QCN.
Right? In the Medicare realm, yes.
In the Medicare realm, yeah. I'm going to certainly go to all the people I'm contracted with and find out exactly what they will cover and who they will pay and what rate.
Okay.
It's unlikely they're going to pay 100%, but sometimes every bit helps.
Yeah, definitely.
And listen, don't get me wrong, it's a lot cheaper to go to somebody's home,
right,
than to take them to the clinic.
To the hospital,
well, especially the hospital,
a rehab center, a nursing home, things like that. Okay. Great. Thank you. Well, I mean, this has been some great information, Charles. Thank you so much. If somebody needs to reach you, has questions for you, what's the best way to do that?
Call me. Email me, charles@medicare-matters.com or 248-730-2400.
All right.
And, I think I mentioned this last time. You might have a cousin who's in this business and he suggests a plan. As long as you tell me, hey, I've got a cousin in the business and he suggests I get this plan, would you do a profile for me? I'm happy to do it. And if it's a good plan, I'll say go with it, And if it's not, I'll explain why. And I'll even educate his cousin as to say, hey, you better get contracted with a different company.
Yeah.
Because not everybody is contracted with every company. Because first of all, some companies don't have outside independent people.
Okay.
And then, unless you're a really big producer, there's half a dozen plans will suffice.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I can look up every single plan on Medicare.gov and say, hey, this is the best plan for you, but I'm not contracted with them, so you can go direct.
Okay. Great. So usually we like to end the show with something fun to talk about. Last time you were here, we found out that you golfed with 007, Sean Connery. Who have you golfed with since we last saw you?
Well, I think when I last saw you, it was October, and I haven't golfed since then. And didn't I mention the fact that I hate golf? What do you mean?
Why do you hate golf? I love golf.
I hate golf. It's disgusting. It's so difficult. But I've got a question for you.
Okay.
All right. And if you know it, I'll buy you a Tootsie Pop. Who was the first James Bond?
I would say Sean Connery, because we just talked about him and it's fresh in my head.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was David Niven. Oh. And funny enough, it was a spoof on James Bond. And this is the amazing thing. It was before James Bond had even had the first movie, which I believe was Dr. No. David Niven came out with Casino Royale, which was a book, by the way, written by Ian Fleming. But it was more the guy, who's the guy's name? The goofy guy. It was more along those lines.
Oh, like Austin Powers.
Yeah, like Austin Powers. It was more along the Austin Powers, a spoof. Yeah, it was a spoof. And David Niven was James Bond. And actually, it was quite fun.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
You learn a new thing every day.
You do, don't you? You learn that I'm not George Bush and that I didn't play golf with David Niven. I think that most of the people listening, well, if they are the age that go on Medicare, they'll know who David Niven is. But you probably don't know.
I have no idea who that is.
He was very good.
I'm going to Google him when we get off.
Google.
I will. Thank you.
Like Nivea, but with an N on the end instead of an A.
Okay. I'll get that spelling from you.
Is that it,
Charles? Yeah. Thank you so much, Charles from Wickens from Medicare Matters. Thank you so much for joining us today and coming on our show yet again with all your knowledge about Medicare. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us on our new podcast network, Quality Care Network. I'm your host, Maggie Jess. If you have any questions about today's episode or anything that we talked about with Mr. Wickens, please feel free to call us at 248-288-2270. That's at Ameristaff Nursing Services or QCN Home Care. Thank you. Stay safe and healthy.